The enemy wishes to fight, brothers! Let us indulge them!
Somebody put me back in the fridge.
It's all fun and games until someone has to be the Nazis. Hi there, you're watching Midwinter Minis.
What? What the fuck?
And also the Panzer IV, the most produced German tank in the same period. Now there's two of us, two tanks, all good, right? I asked Hattie which one she wanted to paint for the video, and she said, please don't make me paint the Nazis.
Here we go again.
Basically, someone has to play as the Nazis, or at least a Nazi allied army. Understandably, some people might feel that playing as the Nazis is inherently immoral or offensive, regardless of the historical context.
Oh my god, who the hell cares?
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Asmogan and today I'm going to be talking about Midwinter Minis. Again! In not a good context. Again! Yay! And this is a channel I genuinely like, which sucks. Because today I got nothing. This is just a terrible video. So they recently, and by recently I mean an hour ago, uploaded a video called The Big Problem with Historical War Games. And in this video, they posed that the reason games like Bolt Action, which I actually think sound fairly popular from my friend group, but anyway, they posed that the reason games like Bolt Action or other historical war games that exist is because somebody has to play the Nazis, somebody has to play the Italians, somebody has to play the Japanese. Like, you have to play the Axis. They're evil. They're the bad guys. They're the guys that we call everybody when we don't agree with them and we don't have a good point on Twitter. It's such bullshit. I'm sorry. This is a terrible video by Midwinter Minis. And I think the interesting part is the whole video, they kind of pussyfoot around the point that they're making, while at the same time, they make it pretty clear their thoughts on the subject. And even end on this like half-hearted note of, oh, but if you think you're wrong, if you think we're wrong, just tell us in the comment section below. Well, I'm gonna tell you, Midwinter Minis, Guy, Hattie, everyone else who might be there, you're fucking wrong, okay? The reason Bolt Action and other similar historical war games are not as popular as something like 40k or as Age of Sigmar or Warhammer Fantasy is because they don't have the escapism element to them that those do. Like, historical war games are historical. They're like, the fan bases that go for them are people who are really obsessed, or at the very least to a degree obsessed with that era of history. That section of time, the weapons that were used, the garments that were worn. You'll rarely find a Bolt Action player who brings their own spin or homebrews history into their sets. Now, of course, they'll homebrew like units or squadrons or things like that didn't exist just to give their own flair. Anyway, they'll work those in for sure, but generally speaking, there's not as much flexibility, or there isn't as much unique or cool design things, unless we're talking from a historical perspective. It's not as bombastic, it's not as escapist, it's just not 40k, it's not Warhammer Fantasy, it's not Age of Sigmar, it's not even Conflict 47, which looks interesting to me, but that's because it's World War II, or at least it looks like World War II, but sci-fi. Like, that for me looks interesting. And I think that goes for most people. Most people, when they look at Bolt Action and choose not to go for it, despite the fact that it's objectively cheaper than something, let's say, like Warhammer 40k, Age of Sigmar, or now Warhammer Old World, etc., is because it's just, for a lot of people, it's boring. It's stuff we were forced to sit through in history class. And for some people, it might be an interesting might be an interesting period in history, but it's not something they want to play a war game about. Like, there's a lot of time and effort that goes into miniature collecting and assembly and painting. And it's just, when it's something like this that you can't really escape into, it's not, there's no, like, you know, loosey-goosey element to it, people just aren't as interested. It's not because, oh, someone's gotta play the Nazis, oh. And at one point in this video, this is what made me dislike the video. Guy says in this video that, as he's listing off, like, you know, people's reasons for not playing, or sorry, as he lists off like traits about someone who might play the Axis / the Nazis in a game like Bolt Action. He ends it on a note that, in my opinion, sounds like what he thinks. He suggests that someone who's playing the Nazis on the tabletop war game are Nazis.
Also, let's not pretend that far-right groups don't still exist, and that their supporters might be into tabletop games. Now, not wanting to paint everyone with the same brush, but what reasons might a person have for actively collecting an Axis army? Maybe, just maybe, they might be slightly too into it.
Like, he's doing that thing. He's doing that thing, essentially, and it's the stupidest shit. He's doing that thing where he's like, oh, well, you know, oh, you're playing a World War II video game, and suddenly, you're a Nazi.
There you are, playing the PvP in your World War II shooter, and all of a sudden, you're a Nazi. You didn't ask for this. You didn't choose this. Yet there it is. And it's treated no differently than playing a British soldier.
Are you stupid, guy? That's so stupid. And at the beginning of the video, he mentioned that Hattie begged him not to make her paint the German tank in this collection because she said, "Oh, don't make me paint the Nazis." It's a miniature. The fuck is wrong with you? It's plastic. It's a replica. This is such stupid shit. Like, honestly, oh God. We keep going back to this thing where so many people can't separate real world from a hobby. And yeah, I get it. To a degree, anyway. That we were talking about a historical war game. And it is inherently connected to history. It is inherently connected to a time period there and a real war with real factions in it. But here's the thing. It's still a game. It's still got game rules. There's still winners and losers in battles where in real life there wasn't a win. There wasn't a conclusive winner. Or if there was, it might not be the side that wins that particular tabletop game. It's not the same. It's not so tied into history that everything someone does in the hobby is inherently a showcase of their beliefs or ideology. And plus, plenty of people might collect the Nazis or any of the Axis just because they find that perspective on the war interesting. Doesn't mean they support their ideology. Doesn't mean they support anything that they did. It just means, hey, the Germans made the coolest looking tank of World War II, guys. Doesn't make him a fucking Nazi. That's Twitter thought. That's Twitter thinking. And again, to acknowledge what is here, Guy and Hetty do kind of dance around making a blatant accusation like a certain other channel that did something just like this. But it's still too close for comfort, guys. It's just don't cover Bolt Action again, please. Just don't risk making another dumb, like, posing thought like this. It soured the whole video. I actually enjoyed the painting in this video. The quality of paint that they had towards the end was really decent. I barely noticed. I had to rewatch the video a second time, turning the audio off and putting on some music to focus on the painting because of what stupid shit I was hearing in my ear. Guys, Nazis aren't playing this game. Just to suggest that that's the I will agree to an extent like this. There are some people who do worry about playing Bolt Action because of the whole Nazi thing. Because they're worried about being accused of being Nazis for playing a fucking tabletop game and collecting what they thought were the coolest looking stuff. No other complex thoughts, no other esoteric thoughts on the historical implications and stuff like that. No, that's the coolest looking tank, that's the coolest looking uniform, that's it. You're not a fucking Nazi because you play a video game where Nazi is it and you might end up on the Axis side. You're not a Nazi because you collect the Germans from Bolt Action. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. That's so stupid. And this is just, it's this puritanical mindset that we had way back when from like heavy right conservative Christian groups, the Satanic Panic, right? Where they were like, video games are the devil. Video games are gonna turn my child into a murderer. Video games are gonna turn my child into a Nazi. Did it? No. No one cared. No one fucking cared. Like, it's so interesting to watch people in my hobby space, like Midwinter Minis, sound like a bunch of psycho puritanical Christians from back in like the 80s or 70s. Hell, even the 90s. It's... Get your heads out of the fucking political gutter and focus on the game. And don't cover bolt action again. Jesus Christ.